Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of That's Hot Pod. I am one of your hosts, Tamberlin Miller, and we have Christian Garza.
Hello.
It's weird because we're not on camera, but we were taking a break from on camera because it's a lot of pressure, being beautiful all of the time.
We don't wanna inundate y'all with our beauty. But really, I look ragged right now, and I just took a nap earlier and
I have like a shower cap on and some Birkenstocks, you know, giving Trader Joe realness. Anyways, today we are here to discuss the life and legacy of, I was going to say the great, but we just got to say Karl Lagerfeld because of what we have found out.
Yes, oh my gosh. Where do we start?
Okay, so this kind of all came about or came back into the forefront because of the Met Gala, the recent Met Gala's theme being based on Karl Lagerfeld. So all these people on TikTok and elsewhere on social media were like doing deep dives into who he is as a person, and turns out it wasn't that great. Or we'll talk and let you guys be the judge, in the comments.
Right? And one in my research, one of the things I listened to was an interview from Andrew Bolton, and he's the curator of the Met Gala, and for the specific exhibit, he mentions that, "Oh, by the way, if you wanna sponsor us so that we can go see the exhibit, follow us on Patreon or send us some money on Zelle,
Yes,
Cash App."
Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, Apple Pay, whatever y'all got, we got. Just let
W
us know.
Well, we're gonna go see it. But in the interview, he was saying that he wanted to focus on all the design and how he was able to go to each one of the houses, Celine, Chanel, Fendi, and, like, find the DNA of that brand, and it wasn't really so much just Karl Lagerfeld, and he was good at that, like, becoming a chameleon for the brands. But
Yes.
it's interesting how they wanted to focus on just the design because I feel like they knew, especially because everything that was coming up after the announcement, that he was, pretty problematic.
Well, in doing a little research for this podcast and, like when everybody was talking about the stuff, prior to the Met Gala,
Mhm.
it became very apparent to me that Karl Lagerfeld has always been a problematic individual.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that we, in the pre-social media time when everybody, could share their opinion, it just wasn't so out there and prevalent that or how the people that maybe felt a way about him, that was not positive, they had no way to voice those thoughts. Like, he kind of called Adele fat.
Mhm.
He has done a lot of things, like, he very fat phobic, even though he became overweight himself, and then
Yes.
went on this crazy diet and then wrote, like, a diet book. I had no idea about this.
Which was basically a scam because, all he did was write the foreword of the book, and then, like, this, like, nutritionist or, like, pseudo doctor, he wrote the book, and the book was basically promoting his services and his, like, clinic where they could purchase these, I forgot they call, like, pochettes or something, specific things that they could consume on this diet that he conveniently would sell.
So interesting. And
Mhm.
that will just basically be the theme of this entire podcast and discussion about Karl Lagerfeld. He was a master at marketing and selling things to the point where he could kind of, like we said about the brands, go to any brand, go to any fashion house, become a, I don't know what the good word is for it. Like, chameleon is a word, but I feel like it goes a little bit deeper than that. He's almost able to, if you guys have seen the Game of Thrones, he's like the many-faced god.
Crickets, I don't know what that means.
Sorry, like, he can go into any situation and just become that temporarily and kinda take the face of whatever that is, slap it on himself for a little while,
Oh,
and do
yeah.
what needs to be done, and then go elsewhere. And I feel like it's because of something that they discussed in his documentary,
Mhm.
or that recently came out on BBC. He was a voracious reader. He had, like, over 300,000 books, I guess, in his collection, and they were not just about fashion, they were about everything: art, politics, travel, different time periods. Like, he just was very, very interested in knowledge and expanding his points of reference. So I feel like that's why it was so easy for him to slip and slide and do all of these things. But I don't. Okay, so how far did you get in the documentary?
I got to the part where they're talking to the ex-bodyguard and, like, who has the money. It turns out that one, what is it, Sebastian? No.
Yeah, Sebastian is the bodyguard man.
Oh, no, the other guy, the first one. I think it's the B, but he
Oh,
got, like
Baptiste.
Baptiste, yes, he got, like, the majority of it, right?
Or he is going to get because it's still not settled. The estate is still not settled.
Oh, really? I didn't get
Yeah,
very far because BBC decided to pull it from whoever uploaded it onto YouTube.
sad. I was also very annoyed that there was no way for us to view it, legally here in America
Mhm.
because come on now, BBC. Are we not allies? Do we not help you guys in the war and whatever problems you have going on? Why are you keeping
Not a
things for yourselves?
not after Brexit.
Oh, okay. Okay, I forgot y'all got a Trump over there and you're doing your own thing now. All right.
Yeah.
So, the documentary was very, very interesting. It started out kinda talking about Karl Lagerfeld's young life. I also forgot that he was German
Oh,
and
he
not
wanted you to
just.
forget.
Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
did. I forgot that he was German and not just, like, a little bit, he was extremely German, down to the fact that his whole aesthetic was based on, like, the German military.
Mm.
Kinda creepy, and he even said it out of his own mouth. He was like, "My style is just very regimented and blah, 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 and almost, like, based on the German military soldier, but, pre-1940." Like, yeah, Holocaust times. Watch it, Carl.
Well, that's kind of allegedly, that's one of the reasons why he didn't wanna be associated with, like, that particular time, and he would lie about when he was born because, he didn't wanna be at all associated with, like, the Nazi party, which
German
is interesting.
denial goes very, very far. My friend was stationed in Germany in the American military for a few years, and this is, like, recent history. She said they all, like, act like it never happened. If you ask a German person, but they're like, "Huh? What?" Like, they have a united front on, "We're not talking about that as a group." So, interesting, Carl. Also interesting that he ended up working and being, like, most notably famous for being at Chanel, and she was also a Nazi sympathizer.
That too also, another parallel is that she was also a big liar of, like, everything about her life. She was.
Yeah, she was.
Ugh.
Funny. Okay. So the first thing about the documentary that I thought was interesting or weird is that okay, Yves Saint Laurent is my favorite designer of all time up to this point, like, counting the classic people, not counting the new people,
Mhm.
and I did not know that Karl Lagerfeld was in a fake love triangle between Yves Saint Laurent, Jacques.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that either. It was so good.
That was so deep, but it was like Karl seemingly did not have sex at all?
Yes, and it must be true, at least for with that partner, because Jacques, what, Brashear? He
Yes.
ended up passing from AIDS complications, and,
Mhm.
obviously, like, they didn't pass it to each other, but how interesting, like, they were in love, but you didn't have, like, intercourse.
And then YSL apparently was just, giving it up, giving it out, but he
Mhm.
didn't get it either. So what was really going on with y'all? Maybe he got him before the HIV/AIDS times, and then they broke up, but that was
Maybe.
interesting
I
too,
thought he
'cause
did die from, like, AIDS.
YSL?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe he did, he was just way later in life, like, he died when I was in high school.
Oh, we'll do a deep dive of him next.
We'll talk about YSL, but I'm calling it a fake love triangle because there was no sex on Carl's side, he was just emotionally
Yeah,
attached. He was acting like a bitter virgin, in my opinion.
I know. Maybe that's why he
Um,
was so bitter, it's just because, like, he didn't have sex.
oh, he was repressed.
Yes.
But then one of the guys that was talking about it was like, "Oh, because Carl cannot have sex, like, he" and I'm like, "He can't, or he didn't want to." But then other people were implying that maybe he was like a voyeur, like, he liked to watch maybe.
Oh.
Very
But
interesting.
apparently he was, like, very flirtatious with everybody who was around.
Yes, because okay, on the point of the flirtation, I thought that these 2 other guys that are gonna come up in the documentary that we're gonna talk about, Baptiste and what's the other hot one?
Oh, the one that has, like, his grandkids
Yeah,
or his,
yeah.
like, godchildren? Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I forgot his name, but we'll show you his picture.
The model.
Anyways, the model man, him
Yeah.
and this guy, I'm like, "Is this your boyfriend?" But then they showed that he had a family, I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then Baptiste, it was like, "Oh, like, Carl's like my dad, he even tried to adopt me at one point," but so it was very, very strange, peculiar.
I know, and I wonder if it's because growing up gay and, like, in my research, it says that, it was something that his parents just accepted. It was just as if another thing as, like, him having a different eye color. It was just accepted and not a thing, but I wonder if, like, some of that was repressed from being gay and just, like, you know, less accepting times.
I think so, and okay, you're from a super duper traditionalist country. Assimilate or die, basically. So, why would you like anything out of the ordinary because they also killed gay people in the Holocaust?
Mhm.
Why would you ever, like, fully embrace that or feel like that was okay to discuss and maybe even act on if that's you're even holding those beliefs and you kinda feel wrong? Kinda like black men that don't wanna be gay because they feel like everything that they've been raised with is against it, but they can't, like, deny who they are. I don't know. It seems very hard and very complicated.
They're still out there, though. I see them around.
Okay, it was Brad. The first guy that Karl Lagerfeld was, like, seemingly obsessed with was
Uh-huh.
Brad.
Okay.
So, yeah, Brad and Baptiste. Okay. Shout out to the bees. The other thing that maybe was the reason that Carl did not have any meaningful relationships, sexual relationships, because he was very consumed by his jobs and his passions, and he said, "There's only so much time, so you better spend it alone, and recharge your batteries," because he had so many things to do, like we're talking about. He was in charge of these multiple fashion houses, he had his own brand, he liked to read all the time, he liked to sketch personally. So, where does that leave a lot of time for, like, family and being in love?
That's
I don't
true,
know.
and plus, like, at some point, he's older, and I feel like up to a point, it must have also been scary besides his, like, childhood and, who can he come out to and not. But then also in the '80s with the whole, like, HIV, AIDS, epidemic, that's, like, another reason, not to have sex because it's just so scary.
I agree, and especially if you are a even slightly religious bent person or
Mhm.
like I was saying, like you grew up in a society that was so vehemently against like anything out of the ordinary, you're probably seeing something like that as an act of God. Like, "Oh my god, like, they're right. Look what's happening to us." Like, "No, being gay is wrong. Look," because that's how some evangelical Christians were talking about it during that time.
So true, like, even today, like, they're like, as long it's an act, not a, way of being. So as long as they don't act upon it, then they're not gay. I don't know.
Yes.
So crazy.
Very interesting. I feel like that's why Luther Vandross never had any public relationships as well,
Oh,
but okay.
lord. I love that when it comes around. I didn't know that until, like, last year that allegedly he was gay.
Yeah, he's very much so
Love
gay,
that.
but mhm, a whole what can you do about it?
Mm,
Then he came to Chanel in 1982,
mhm.
11 years after Coco Chanel died, and it was kinda dry and stale during that time period because Coco was a sort of dry and stale lady in her old age. She was not at all innovative and stuff like that, and she kinda hated everything new. So Karl going to Chanel and, like, sexing up the place was very much so like, tantamount to Tom Ford going to Gucci.
Tantamount, love that.
Mm, SAT words.
I guess.
But yeah, he, like, really brought the sex to Chanel, and he had those girls out there in those bright colors, showing skin, showing leg. Claudia Schiffer came, and she was, like, the perfect white woman to embody the time. And then later on, he found Naomi Campbell, and it was a wrap.
But they also, like, brought him over after seeing success from Celine. So, like, that was the first place he went to. But even before that, he was working for Balmain, right? No, Givenchy. Which one was
Givenchy,
it?
mhm.
Yeah, because YSL, he won the prize in this one competition. I think it was a Bullmark
Oh, yes,
prize.
Carl won as well. Mhm.
Yes, Cobb won in particular, I think, jacket competition and YSL.
Yes.
he won the dress competition, so he went to go work for Givenchy and Karl at Balmain, and then from there, he went to Celine and then Chanel. He was at Fendi too. At that
Yes.
time too?
Oh, wait. Did he go to Okay, I think he went to Fendi a little bit after Chanel.
Okay.
That was next.
And it's interesting because I didn't know this until, like, all of our research that he wasn't, like, a specific he didn't have like, he was freelance for Fendi and Chanel.
Getting that money.
Yes, love it.
So, a part of all of these jobs, right? Carl ends up amassing a fortune. And then socialism comes to Paris and it throws him for a loop. It's Francois Miltran, I believe that's how you say his name, was elected as the first socialist president of France. And it just did not go well. Carl was like, I cannot pay these taxes. I'm not doing that. Like, this is my money. It brought the German back out of him. Like, no, hell no. And Helmut Newton invited him to Monte Carlo because it's like tax free, notoriously for tax free for the rich people. He's also good friends with Princess Caroline of Monaco since she was a teenager. You know, helping her get dressed for her events, this and that, so she can be the young cool one, the Princess Diana of her time, if you will. He used her kind of to market Chanel and the brands he's working on to a higher society, which is easier because I feel like people kind of put influencers like they're only during this time, but there's always been influencers. It was just done in a different way.
Yeah.
So we're kind of using these rich ladies to influence other people with less money, celebrities and the like, to want to live the Chanel lifestyle, live the Fendi, whatever he was working on at the time.
Mhm.
He then ends up buying this big ass cliff mansion called Lavigny or something like that. It's on the Mediterranean. Carl paid for the whole reconstruction of it. It was like a castle, a dilapidated castle. But he fucked up because it was right on the French border. So his whole malicious plot to avoid taxes ended abruptly because his house turned out to be in France anyway. It was an
Oh,
oversight.
wow. I did not know that
Hilarious.
part.
Hilarious to me that this happened to him because it takes me to the quote, make sure your deeds will find you out. Carl, you tried to hide, and you tried to hide openly and kind of still live like, what did the lady say? Like, oh, he lived like a prince, like he lived like royalty, pretty much, minor royalty. He ended up having to sell all of his prized 18th century furniture to get out of
That
tax debt.
oh my gosh. I did not get to that part either.
I think it's not it's funny, like, sad, not funny like haha.
Right. Keep in mind that, like, he lied about his past and, like, to the extent of his family's wealth, he was, like, funded. So his parents, upper middle class, or whether or not they were, like, elitely rich, he would call his mother, what, Elizabeth of whatever region, I forgot. Oh my gosh, what was it? But he would allude to her as if she was, like, of royal descent.
What?
And and so he was, like, a lonely child, and his mother was, like, very, um, I guess is indignant the right word? She, like, loved her son, but she would also poke, and that probably was why he had, like, a lot of, like, insecurities, or he had, like, a lot of bitterness, people who
Mhm.
are bullies tend to become bullies,
Very much so.
and so, whenever he eventually moves to Paris, his family's funding him, it must be nice.
It's strange because he ends up having a sister at some point, or maybe he always had a sister, but he just was not close to his family. Who
Mhm,
knows how they were raised? Maybe it was odd too that he was lying so much about his life.
right,
But he ends up like reconnecting with them after he gets a little bit of money and he comes out to America. I think it was like North Carolina, South Carolina, something like that, to visit. And he comes in a limo. Like he was just very much so out of touch, in my opinion. And he came over to America to flex on these people. He meets the family, whatever. And he's like all well dressed. He was back in his young, good looking stage where he kind of looked Italian. And
mhm,
clearly, like everybody there is assuming that he's gay, but like we said, he's not acting on anything, so nothing they can do. And
yep,
he kind of takes a liking to the kids, and I feel like he just like he has a thing for kids, maybe because he never is gonna have a family of his own, and he's, like, conscious of that.
Mm.
So he really takes a liking to kids, and he wants to show them a good time. He ends up taking his niece and nephew out to Paris. They've never been before. He, like, showered them with gifts, taking them out and stuff, but they're like he still just worked constantly all the time. Then years later, his niece calls and tells him that she's getting married, and he offers to make the dress. He goes all out for the dress, flies it overnight the day before the wedding on a red eye, had his own seat, the whole thing. So it was like with his evil deeds, he was also very, very generous. So it was odd. Like you don't want to pay taxes because you want to bestow the money on who you would like. Is that what it
Mm.
is?
So, there's always redeeming qualities, and that's what, like, several of the interviews that I, like, listened to, read, whatever, they especially, like, they were insiders, so it's like, if we were in his circle, he loved and cared for you, he wanted to, like, shower you, like how
Hmm.
you said he did with his relatives, but maybe he just didn't care for the outside world because I can relate. I don't I don't care about anybody.
I personally have a very hard time caring about things and people that don't directly affect me.
Mm.
So I get it. Maybe it is harsh, maybe it is desensitized, but it is what it is. This is America, sweetie. We don't have time. Also, on the point of his generosity, he like would buy houses and cars and things for his servants, as he called them, like Sebastian, the best bodyguard slash, manservant ever. Bought him a
Yes.
house in Central Pay.
Wow.
Like, what? That's crazy. And even at the end of the documentary, he's kind of like, because they're still working out the estate or whatever, and he was telling the story, like, oh, he had taken Carl there because he was like Carl's fixer, Carl's manservant. And he was like, oh, it's so beautiful here, blah, blah, blah. Like, wouldn't you like to live here? And he said, yeah, Carl, but like, I could never afford this. He was like, just go look for a house, gets him a house. And so he passes away. Sebastian is the only person there with him. When he finds out that he has this like health diagnosis, the doctor's trying to get him to do different things about it. He's not being very compliant because he doesn't understand. And like Carl said with his own words, he likes to like shower his close friends and assistants and all that with money and gifts because they essentially take care of him. He said they do more for him than anyone else because outside of fashion and what he does, he's completely stupid. He's like, I don't drive, I don't cook, I don't do none of that regular people stuff. So like these people that do it for me, I love them.
Hmm.
Which, I guess is interesting. It's a thing. He meets these models, he kind of falls. To me, it's like he falls in love with them.
Which ones?
Like Brad and Baptiste.
Oh, yes. So it was like his replacement for love.
Definitely. Like you're just obsessed with
Mm.
these guys. You want to take their picture all the time. You want to give them opportunity, put them in every single ad that you're working on. Like you're essentially making them famous, but they still are not allowed to kind of do things that you don't like or things that you don't approve of, sort of thing.
Of course,
Baptiste
there's
was
still the help.
Yes, you're still the help, don't ever get out of line. Baptiste, who I thought was gonna be his boyfriend, but ended up turning out that that was his fake son. He's gonna get the most of the inheritance whenever the suit is settled. Brad's kids, he just fell in love with them. He's their godfather. He's bought them a bunch of stuff, put them on the Chanel runway. They've been on In Vogue, different things. He was flying them out on vacations every year. Just very, very interesting.
So I wonder if this is just like building his own. A lot of people in the gay community, they tend to like build their own family because,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, but like this is like the substitute. Like I created my own family and that was his.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. You didn't and he was super close with Cara Delevingne too. She wasn't in the documentary. She's very, very rich, so I would never assume that she would just be in a documentary that was not, like, authorized or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe she is like a daughter a little bit or the models that he would. Oh, that's another thing. So he was buying all these books. Like I said, he has over 300,000 in his collection. He was spending anywhere from 500 to $7,000 a year at this one specific bookshop in Paris near his home. And the lady was like, he would come in and he would not just buy books for himself, like he would buy multiple copies. And when they talked to Sebastian, he was like, "Oh yeah, he gave me books all the time." And at first I kind of didn't get it, but after a couple of years I realized, "Oh, he was trying to help me." He was never a person that would like talk down to you or call you stupid or anything like that. As far as you not knowing something, he really liked to teach people and like to put people on game about things. So he was like, I realized slowly that he was giving me these books so I would have different things to talk about. Like I didn't just have to talk about sports or cars, like my mundane interests. I could talk about history, I could talk about art. Like I could fit in really with any type of crowd of people. And he used to give the books to the models as well, and in hopes that maybe it would, I don't know, enlighten them, put them on a better path. So he was generous with money and trying to be generous with knowledge as well. But you can't force people to read.
Oh, yeah. I love that. It's also, like, a little shade. It's like, "Oh, you're a moron. Here's a book."
Here, take this book. Like I heard you speaking earlier, and your vocabulary is very limited. Here is a
Mhm.
book. He was also very obsessed with the 18th century. He said he feels like he was supposed to be in that time period. And as a person that just loves period dramas, like that's my preferred genre of things. I don't care about anything modern as far as unless it's like science fiction, fantasy. I also prefer the olden times. As a black person, I would never say that I want to go back. But for Carl, I could definitely see him like living in a castle, being the lady's dressmaker or something like to a queen, like Marie Antoinette or Queen Victoria or something. Like he fits that aesthetic.
Yeah, something about him, especially maybe because of all of his, like, knowledge of history, he definitely seems like he's always, like, buttoned up to the T, very pristine and, like, well kept. Liked his image and everything, but in, like, interviews I've read, he's kind of like a grump, but
Yes.
also with, I don't know, a bit of personality and, like, an amusing sensibility. I love that he had, like, that, like, personality.
Yes, and I feel like that's what made him tolerable. It took the edge off because he was like grumpy but could be funny, and then he's cool because of how he dresses and things.
Mhm.
Also, kind of the most famous thing about him, his cat Chopette, I found out from the documentary, was not even his pet. It was Baptiste's pet,
Yeah, he
and
stole it.
he stole it. Baptiste went out of town. He was like, "Carl, watch my pet," which everybody at the time was also like, "Oh hell no! Like this is not about to happen. This is not going to work." Like, how did Baptiste is crossing the line? Carl takes the pet, keeps it, and I feel like that was a very parent thing because my best friend had these little teacup chihuahuas and she went to college and she was supposed to go out there, get settled, and then get her dog. And her mom was like, no, like Mocha saying here with me, you left. Like, be gone. And Carl kind of did the same thing with Chopette. And he did with Chopette what he does with all his relationships. He made her famous.
Yes.
Now she has like her own product lines and deals and all of these things. She's like in photo shoots and has merch.
What a lucky cat.
What who gets the money though? Because 'Cause I'm like, the cat just needs to be cared for by a human. So does the human that takes care of your pet now inherit all of their earnings?
No, because it even has an agent, right? Like the cat?
Yes, has an agent, has a lawyer.
Yeah, so I'm sure, like, that person will definitely be compensated, but it's the money has to be in this cat's name. I don't know. It's weird.
This the cat don't need no money.
Mm, that's
How
true.
how much, salmon, caviar can you eat, cat?
A lot.
I guess so. She has, like, diamonds and things. Your pet's living a better life than most of us.
Yeah, definitely better than me.
So, in closing, Carl was a very fashionable tax evader.
A
Um,
complicated character,
Complicated cat, very well read.
and, like, maybe probably a heart of gold underneath this, stern exterior, and, of course, like, we all say dumb things, and he definitely shouldn't have said some, like, mean things, but don't we all?
Yeah, what can you do about it? And especially as you start to get older and more out of touch, and you're like
Mhm.
you're around less normal, average people that share the average consensus, and you're around fashion people, as Christian and I know very well because we went to fashion school. Not the nicest group of people, not the most friendly, amiable, very strict group, if you will.
Which is interesting because I feel like a lot of the fashion people are usually, like, the outsiders to the, like, general consensus people.
Oh,
But then,
yeah.
maybe it's like they create their own little, like, fashion club, and instead, y'all will be the outsiders, and we're gonna be, like, the little bullies.
N Definitely what it is, definitely. You see a lady with a nice outfit, and she's gonna treat you a little bit differently because she feels like she deserves respect based on that outfit, across age groups. I've even seen older women act snobby, like, like, "You don't know what this designer is? Like, you're stupid, you're gross, like, you're low class."
Hmm.
So, fashion breeds insensitivity.
Kind of. And it also breeds image disorders, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be a segue to our next episode, so follow us and subscribe. Next time, we'll be tackling fashion and its connection and relationship with body dysmorphia and eating disorders. A heavy topic.
And very heavy, but we want to start being more, I guess, well-rounded in our content because, yes, we both care about fashion a lot. It's probably a solid, the most of the pie percentage of what at least I care about in my life. But it does have effects and it does affect other things. So it's like it's good to talk about those things. Don't just talk about the good stuff. We got to be, well-rounded in our approach.
Yes.
So next week we talk about the evils of fashion,
Mm,
the side effects of looking beautiful and perfection culture.
yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening, my bad. And we will see you next time. Like, share,
Alright,
subscribe.
thanks. Bye.
Bye.